next experiment is to determine capillarity within the different types of soils. Remember, we have sandy soil, loamy soil, and clayey soil. Each of those has a certain amount of sand, silt, gravel, and clay. And the amount of those components give it a name. For example, sandy soil has more sand and gravel. Clayey soil has more clay and silt, and loamy soil has a proportional amount of both sand and clay. Okay, what is capillarity? Capillarity is the rise and fall of a liquid within a narrow space. So we shall carry out an experiment to confirm which of those has more capillarity than the others. What shall we need? Those are the materials. We shall need the different soil types, let the different samples of the soils, the different soils, a trough, open-ended tubes which are more like capillary tubes, corks that will close one end of the glasses, water, and a trough. And how shall that look like? So this is our diagram. This is how it looks like. We have our trough right here, the water, and then we have our glass tubes. like this one, glass tubes. We close these glass tubes with corks. There are corks here that have closed off the other open end, and this other open end is just left like that within as it touches the water. Now we place all of these three glass tubes. This has clay soil. This has let me put it here. This has loam soil, and this has sand soil. So we put these soil samples in the different glass tubes at the same time within the water, and we observe. So what do we see immediately after putting them in? The sand soil has water passes through it most at first. It has water going up the soil particles fastest, followed by loam soil, followed by clay soil. Clay soil has water going through its particles last, but as we keep on observing, we realize that later on, you see this is water level, and this is water level, and this one. But at the end of the experiment, clay has the most water on top of the soil, followed by loam soil, followed by glass tubes. Now, although clay soil takes the largest amount of time for capillarity to take place, it's where most of the capillarity actually takes place, because we see that in the end it has the most amount of water that pass through the particles to the end of the glass tube, followed by loamy soil, and then followed by sandy soil. So we can conclude by saying that capillarity took place greatest in clay soil, followed by loamy soil, and sandy soil had the smallest capillarity. However, it's the one that experienced the fastest movement of water immediately after we had started the experiment. And what does this show us? How do we explain that? We can explain that because sandy soil has a lot of spaces within it, water quickly brushes through it. Because clay soil has the smallest particles, water takes its time to go through it. But since capillarity takes place most efficiently in the narrowest of spaces, for that reason, capillarity is going to take place most efficiently within clay soil. So we can conclude by saying that clay soil has the highest capillarity, followed by loamy soil, and sandy soil has the lowest capillarity. And that's the experiment about capillarity in the different types of soils. We have looked at the different experiments with soil. Now we're going to look at one more experiment, and that is experiment to determine water retention in the different types of soil. Remember the types of soil: we have the loamy soil, the clay soil, and the sandy soil. What is water retention? Water retention is the ability of the type of soil to hold water, meaning to prevent that water from seeping through it. That is retention. So that will also give us an idea on what we call drainage. So our keywords here are drainage. Refers to the ability of soil to lose water through it. For example, if I have an amount of soil in my hands and I pour water through it, how easy does that water run through? the soil. That's drainage. Okay, so a type of soil that is very good at retaining water is then not very good at draining water. Draining is going through. Retention is holding it to prevent it from going through. So if a type of soil is so good at holding water, then it is not so good at letting it go through. Okay, so what shall we need for this kind of experiment? Those are the apparatus. First, we shall need the different soil types. We shall need 3 measuring cylinders. We shall need 3 funnels. We shall need cotton wool. Definitely we shall need water. We shall arrange them according to this diagram. This is how we set up the apparatus. We have our measuring cylinder. We get a filter funnel and put cotton wool at the hole point, at the hole where water would go through. Then on that cotton wool, we pour in the soil. It has to be the same amount of soil for both loamy soil, sandy soil, and clay soil. So we pour a sand soil on top of cotton wool. The next thing we do is to pour 30 cubic centimeters of water in each of those setups at the same time. So this is our sandy soil. This is our loamy soil. And this is our clay soil. This is our filter funnel. This is our measuring cylinder. And this is water that has gone through. What do we observe after some time? Once we pour in the water, the first drop comes from sandy soil. And the first drop then followed by loamy soil, then followed by clay soil. Clay soil is the one that gets the drop fall through last. And in the end, sandy soil has the largest amount of water that drained through it, followed by loamy soil, and followed by clay soil. So what does that tell us? It confirms that clay soil has the greatest retention, has the greatest water retention, the greatest water holding capacity, followed by loamy soil, and sandy soil has the poorest water retention capacity. Whereas sandy soil has the greatest drainage. By drainage, remember, we mean water flowing through the soil particles. Sandy soil has the greatest, and clay soil has least water drainage. So that is the experiment to show the different the retention, water retention and water drainage of the different types of soil.